Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Wednesday, and all of our guests today, including Bob Stauffer from Edmonton, standing by, brought to you by our title sponsor, Able Auctions, ableauctions.ca. Canucks at Oilers Thursday, a rematch looking back to last Saturday and all the emotion in that game. Suspensions to Connor McDavid and Tyler Myers. Seemingly all of Edmonton, it was fun going on Twitter yesterday and watching all the reaction from Edmonton, including reaction from Bob. Seemingly all of Edmonton upset about Connor McDavid getting 3 games, Tyler Myers also getting 3 games for cross-checking. Here to talk about it, Oilers analyst on CHED, Sportsnet panelist on the Oilers broadcast up in Edmonton, Bob Stauffer. Bob, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Good, Don. How are you guys doing?
Very, very well. What kind of reception is Conor Garland going to get on Thursday?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I mean, from a pure look, let's make this clear right from the get-go. I work for the Oilers Entertainment Group. I wouldn't want to deceive your listeners in any way, shape, or form. I think that from a pure gamesmanship perspective, what Garland did was quite effective. And that is how you play that situation. And you guys have witnessed it. You witnessed it in the late 2000s and the early 2010s. I mean, you had 2 of the classiest players of all time, Henrik and Daniel Sedin, and those guys at times, opposition players, including Boston during the 2011 final, took liberties. And there is unfortunately a time-honored tradition in hockey where we want our stars to play through that stuff. But in terms of Garland, I mean, that was a very cagey move by, on his part.
From an officiating point of view, Bob, what should have happened?
Should have been a penalty. The hand should have been up. I mean, I was agitated early. It's unique going into Vancouver. There always seems, and you guys are 2 of the biggest guys out there that cover sports. I mean, there seems to be a fair amount of drama around that team at all times.
That's good for us, Bob.
It is. I'm in year 17 of doing the games, and I did the Golden Bears for 13 years before that. So I go out to Vancouver the 3 most important people in my life live in Vancouver right now. So. The reality is I'm out in Vancouver a lot. It always seems to be, fueled, lots of emotion. You mentioned the fan bases. They go at it back and forth. But I was, the Canucks were on their game. We had Ray Ferraro on our show on Thursday when we were doing the game in Denver. He was working for ESPN, and he said Vancouver's got an A game and a D game. And I thought we saw the Canucks A game and the Oilers were tired. They basically had played 9 games in 16 in 9 different cities. So they did not play well. Vancouver were the better team. But the call early in the game against Bouchard after Miller cross-checked him right in the back, that gets me going, right? Like, I'm like, come on, you at least call that a 50-50 play. So there should have been a whistle against Garland, but it's frankly a microcosm of what happens to star players in the NHL. They simply are not treated the way the star players are in the other major professional sports. And you guys have watched it firsthand because you had the Sedins.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hey, I got to ask you about this, Bob. There's talk up there at Edmonton about the possibility of Connor McDavid boycotting the 4 nations. Nobody's really serious about that, are they?
Not a chance. It's funny. You can read a text, and people go, "Oh, I heard it on your." It's a text. I mean, we used to have call-in shows, and now they're kind of text-in shows. First of all, he hasn't had the chance to represent Canada. So, I mean, guys would block slap shots in the nude to be on that team. I had to laugh because Sam Bennett finally scored last night. He hadn't scored in the 19 games since being named to Team Canada. And a guy like Hyman, who had 54 goals last season, doesn't get in the mix. And Bennett, who's never had a 50-point season, is on the team. So, no, I don't think for a second Connor boycotts. He better not, because I'm going there. So we have a fan event through the show, and we're going. No, I mean, there's not a chance he's going to boycott that.
Hey, Bob, what did you think of the Oilers sending out a press release on McDavid's suspension? Now, you don't see that a lot from NHL teams. What did you think of that?
Well, I was the former, SID at the University of Alberta. By the way, shout out to 6'10" Sven Butchon. He's got that UBC program going in the right direction. They got a good team now.
Yeah.
But because when I did the Bears games, we never lost there. Like in 20 years.
Yep.
Like from 88 to 08. So I'm an old SID. I guess you do it. I don't know. I mean, I didn't think it was that strongly worded or that insensitive in any way, shape, or form. I mean, the league monitors everything now, guys. You know this. I mean, they sit there and monitor what gets said during intermission features, and then they have guys that aren't completely transparent about the nature of their relationships with the league. There's some power guys in the league. I mean, the Canucks played against Gregory Campbell and the Boston Bruins in 2011, and Colin Campbell's got a lot of power in the National Hockey League, and sort of either directly or now indirectly kind of has an impact on officiating. And oh, by the way, the Oilers played Florida last year, and guess who was the assistant GM of the Florida Panthers? The one and only Gregory Campbell, the guy who wrote he wrote a letter after not getting invited to Team Canada's tryout camp back in the day to get invited to the December camp and ended up on the team. I mean, there's little power influences that go around in the league. So the letter's the letter, whatever. I mean, it's the reality of the situation is people are not happy at Edmonton. Yep. I mean, you guys watched the NFL on Saturday. Patrick, I'm not saying the NHL needs to become the NFL and you can't touch Pat Mahomes. That's what happens in the NFL. But I also think that Connor McDavid shouldn't be 197th in penalties drawn per 60 minutes played. It's not like he doesn't have the puck. He's got the puck the most of anybody. But penalty calls are down against McDavid, McKinnon, Draisaitl, and players of that ilk. And everybody listening right now in Vancouver and on the island and everything else, they get it. Because you all witnessed the same thing about 10 years ago when you had the Sedins.
Some of the most fun on Twitter is watching Canucks fans and Oilers fans. They were debating a week ago about Vasily Podkolzin. Bob, what can you tell us about Podkolzin? He's actually having a good year. I think he's on pace he's doing pretty well this year. Tell us about Podkolzin this year in Edmonton.
Well, Rick, I like to think I know a lot, but I didn't have a hot clue on what type of player Vasily was. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I can't figure out why it didn't work in Vancouver for Rick Tocchet, because he should be Rick Tocchet's type of player. He plays in straight lines. He retrieves pucks on the forecheck. His work back to the puck is quite effective. Draisaitl and McDavid have gone out of their way, unsolicited, to talk lonely about his games, and they're not worried about the finishing. That might come over time, And I'll tell you one more thing. You guys recall with Podkolzin when he was a Canuck, A.J. Greer did a number on him, okay? And Vasily missed some time. He took a pretty stiff shot. The Oilers were playing Florida. A.J. Greer cross-checked Vasily Podkolzin from behind, head first into the boards. Should have been a major penalty. It wasn't. Vasily got up, turned around, and was prepared to fight him. He's a highly competitive player, and the fans have very quickly, and his teammates have come to really appreciate it. I'm disappointed the Oilers lost specifically Holloway because he was coming and they just needed to give him, more minutes. But Podkolzin's done a real good job I flew to Vancouver that day to see my family on the 18th, the day that trade came down in August. And I was 2 days before the Oilers had to, render their decision on the match or non-match on Dylan Holloway. So that deal and, frankly, the Emerson deal have both worked out for the Oilers.
Okay, Bob, before we let you go, I got to ask you about this, whether you said it or not, but we can throw this graphic up. I know you can't see it here, Bob, but throw this graphic up, Ryan. This is Vancouver, 0 cups and 2 riots. Now, we've said this sort of thing, too, but that's what we're from Vancouver. We're allowed to say this sort of thing. Did you say this? Were you taken out of context?
What I said was Vancouver's an emotional market. Mm-hmm. Case in point, 0 cups, 2 riots. And then I said, well-managed, well-coached, have had 2. Of course, that part's not in there, right?
Left out. Left out.
I also said that they've had 2 of the classiest players ever, the Sedins. And they got this right, for me right now, the second best American player on the planet, who, by the way, you guys, in Quinn Hughes, the other guy that's better American player is Matthews. Quinn Hughes is head and shoulders your best player. Yeah. All this talk about Miller and Pettersson, the guy that drives your team, you're one team when Hughes is on the ice, and you're another team when he's. That's what I said. But I thank those guys very much from Oilers Nation who are not affiliated with the Edmonton Oilers for I say enough stupid crap without having something like that come across the way. So, hey, it's up. And I'm not one of these Brian Hall, Neil McRae guys from back in the day, right? I'm not. I think that media personalities that crap on other markets are like comedians that have to tell fart jokes. They're limited. So but I will say again, it's highly charged when Edmonton plays Vancouver. There's no question about it.
We need more of that stuff. By the way, and I said it earlier, but we're very aware. 0 cups and a couple of Stanley Cup riots. I will say this, Bob, to your defense, there's no shortage of people who are upset with the Vancouver media right now that we're not on side enough, that sort of thing. A lot of people in Vancouver checked out Twitter, social media yesterday, saw the Edmonton media defending the Oilers, defending Connor McDavid, and we've received a lot of can we trade the Edmonton media for the Vancouver media? So, if you're thinking about moving to Vancouver, I think you might have a few fans here, Bob.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not moving to Vancouver for at least 6 more years, so you can figure out why that's the case. All 4 of my sisters are in BC, 3 are in the Lower Mainland. My wife and kids are in Westman right now. A guy that listens to your show every day, his name is Donald Pryor. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. He texts me all, Dolly said this, he broke this about this agent talking about this. Don Taylor's like, it's funny. I hear this stuff every day. Again, and for the record, the Canucks will make the playoffs. Mark my word. They'll make the playoffs.
Right. I think all those people you mentioned were in the last riot, Bob. They do live here.
Don was in the riot?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
That's what we heard.
Well, big hello to Donald Pryor and all your relatives. Bob, you're a sport. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
We love you, Bob.
Anytime you're stuck and can't get somebody better out of Edmonton, call me.
Okay. It's not possible. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.